Happy birthday to Kamala Harris. Where the hell has she been? Where is she?
I know.
I'm not saying that because I'm not to be political, but I mean I haven't seen or heard her.
I think you got some political stuff going on.
I totally agree with you.
There's some separation. I think. I mean, I'm not a political.
She was out there big time, and I mean, she has gone bye-bye. You see her get on Air Force One every once in a while, but that's about it.
Yeah. I don't know. It's hard to tell if she's laying low or been told to lay low.
I think they're probably telling her to lay low. Because there's a lot of stuff.
Who's they? Do you know what I mean? Her advisors?
I don't know I don't know if it's specifically Joe. Because when Joe was out there doing all of his things, she was always right beside him. She ain't been around. Well, she can be partying tonight. She's 57.
She's 57? Dude, that shows...
Snoop Dogg.
Jesus. If she's 57, tell me Snoop Dogg isn't like 56.
He's 50.
Okay.
Tom Petty would have been today.
62.
71. They had a great story on ESPN about how Florida does this whole Tom Petty thing because it's super cool. He would have been 71 today. And a woman who I don't think I've ever shared this with you. When I say famous psychologist, who do you think of?
Oh, a female psychologist?
Mm-hmm. She was huge for a while. She was huge when psychology wasn't even cool.
What's her face?
Dr. Joyce Brothers.
Oh, yeah. No, I was thinking she's actually a psychiatrist, I think.
She's like, well, she on her.
Yeah, Joyce Brothers was yes. Joyce Brothers was the first.
Yeah. Was that when you could be a psychiatrist and a psychologist?
No, it's just when.
On her Wikipedia page it says psychologist.
Does it just, is Joyce Brothers a psychologist?
Yeah.
I thought she was a psychiatrist. Yeah, no, my mom would tune into Joyce Brothers on the AM radio.
She used she had her own show. She would have been 94 today. I met her out at the Grammys.
Please tell me you didn't have sex with her.
No, this was 1989, something like that.
Remember she would do all those cameos?
She was an attractive older woman, and she was, man, we've come a long way with reality television and doctors and the Dr. Phils and psychologists and these wannabe psychologists and life coaches and everything. But she was like, between her and Dr. Ruth.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the fact they were women, you'd have
They brought it out. They brought, yeah.
And I it was weird because I interviewed Lindsey Buckingham.
And Joyce Brothers.
And then Meatloaf. I'll never forget the
it's
four
like
guests I had.
a strange dream. Did you lay down on the couch after?
It was weird. Then Dan Aykroyd. And then Heidi Klum. And Heidi was the one that sat at my table for like 3 interviews. They had like 10 minutes with each one of us.
Right.
There was like 50 radio stations. And for whatever reason, she's like, I'm having fun with this tall, lanky dude. I'm going to stay here. And so she did 3 segments with me. And she was, oh, God. Something about looking at a woman eye to eye. She was my height. It was amazing. She gave a great hug. And I still think she is like that. And then my next guest was Dr. Joyce Brothers. And I knew Joyce Brothers. I knew she was a psychologist, but I wasn't prepped for any of these interviews. And so it was really uncomfortable. Meatloaf was one of the most uncomfortable interviews I ever had because he was very short with his answers. I didn't know what he had out. You know, Batted to Hell was the only thing I knew he did. 2 out of 3 ain't bad. I mean, I didn't even know where I was going. It was probably the worst interview I ever did. And then Joyce Brothers. And Joyce was good enough that she sensed that I didn't know what the hell to ask. And so she kind of filled in the blanks for me. And she's like, well, you know, what do you think about, she would ask me questions. And she, well, what do you think, what do you think about all these, or what do you think the psychology is of all these jocks that don't know what? And then I had the band, 2 people from the Mamas and the Papas.
Really?
Did a show out in L.A.
Yeah.
And they were sitting right to the right of me, and they made everyone sing Happy Together. Or no, that was the Turtles. Well, one of the 2 bands. Anyway, it was a band, and they would make every guest sing a verse of their song. And so every 10 minutes, I heard Happy Together for like 8 hours in a row.
It's good that
I could not get that song out of my head. But she was really nice.
Did you process all that with her? That's a lot to unpack there.
Yeah. I mean, and again, you can only get so far in 10 minutes. Unless it's Heidi Klum and I had it for 30.
That is great. Yeah, Joyce Brothers really changing. You know, one of the interesting things I think about Dr. Phil, you can say what you want about where he is and where he's gone, but there was a huge, the number of years between Joyce Brothers and the next sort of pop psychologist.
Who would be the next pop psychologist?
I mean, at the level of Joyce Brothers, it was Dr. Phil. It was Decades.
Did anyone ever come after Dr. Ruth?
Dr. Ruth was over here because Dr. Ruth is a physician who does sex. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but I mean, wouldn't you think someone would come along that was a little more? I mean, the next thing I can think of is Love
there's Dr. Berman. She's a gynecologist. I'm blanking on her first name. She's younger. She's probably in her 40s. Real good looking. She's a gynecologist and does sex. That's the thing, which I think is super interesting. And this is one of the challenges about being a psychologist. You have lots of sex docs and shows and that whole because you got sex therapists, you got physicians who either deal with sexual issues, the Dr. Ruths, you got other gynecologists, and it's like this whole thing because it's about sex. And there's a lot of that. The psychologist part was interesting because you had Joyce Brothers who you could talk, people would call in and talk about their problems, right? And then the sort of talk show host, the lifestyle host, the Phil Donahues, the Oprah, they kind of played psychologist. Right? Because
Phil Donahue,
right, because everybody is a psychologist. And that's not, I don't mean that in a negative. We're all psychologists. It's hard for us all to be gynecologists. Right? I mean, we try on this show sometimes and it doesn't work, right? But you had that whole sort of, the Phil Donahues and I'm blanking, and then Oprah. Oprah was everybody's psychologist. You sat down on the couch and you cried. And it was a long time before a psychologist kind of popped up onto the scene. And that's what the Dr. Phil was. And Dr. Phil, people loved Dr. Phil, because he was male. So he was male, playing a psychologist. He was a straight-talking Texan. But, we've talked about this off camera. I think one of the difficulties, with the exceptions of, I think, people like Oprah, is you have to keep entertaining. You got to keep feeding the beast. And so, he went from kind of Joyce Brothers was not straight talking. She was more soft. She was easy. He was a straight talking. I'm going to give you the advice. And then it had to get more controversial. And
because you have to push the envelope. You can't keep answering the same questions.
I do like when people like that make cameo appearances. I think that's hysterical. Dr. Phil does that occasionally in movies. He'll just hop in the taxi, but people ask me all the time, is that your goal in life? To be the next Dr. Phil? And I'm like, and I've said this before, yes and no. I think he did a great job. I think it is not fame, the business pushed hard. Like, the other one is...
Well, you would be in the same position. You know that, don't you?
Oh, no, I know.
I mean, you can't... And I think you do that here.
Oh, yeah. There's stuff I say here that, yes.
Yeah, I mean, you are really, really good at your lines. You do go outside those lines, but you're very, very good at bringing it back from a psychological standpoint. And that's where I've told you where you're the best is when you're Dr. Josh Klapow, psychologist, and Josh Klapow, the man, and you talk down the middle. And that's what makes you so good, because a lot of psychologists are real, and they're not willing to go there, and you're willing to go wherever I take you. And thank you for holding my hand through
that's
it.
That's why I'm in therapy myself.
Sometimes you're trying to pull away, and I'll just jerk your ass back. Today is also International Chef Day.
Yeah, that's great.
Today is International Kissing Day.
Okay.
This is a day where you're supposed to just kiss,
as long as you're vaccinated. And
we had a great segment yesterday. It was our first segment from 7:30 to about 8:15, 8:30 yesterday about tolerance.
Yep.
And I had several people reach out to me and said, "Man, that was amazing." And they looked at life a little differently after they heard both our takes on being more tolerant and compassionate towards people in and around us. And I used the story of my son's bus driver.
Yes.
To kind of get us off, and she's great. Shauna, who's on the bus, is a helper. She's fantastic, and Alexandra is a bus driver. And you can hear this podcast later on today, wherever you listen to your podcast, Kurre and Klapow. But yesterday was Bus Driver Appreciation Day. I didn't know. So
no wonder she was driving off from you.
So this morning, I mentioned yesterday, she's supposed to be here at 6:42. She says get there 5 minutes early. We're about a 2-minute walk, tops. So I leave the house at 6:35, and we got up there yesterday, and she's driving away. And we're running down the street. And
a gift for her.
Yeah, and she's like, hey, how's that jog? I'm like, okay, it's 6:40 in the morning. My old ass ain't jogging. So she's, no, it's 6:39. And I said, okay. So my son gets off the bus yesterday at 3:15. And again, I don't know who listens to the show. I don't know. And I'm always cognizant of talking about people that I'm close to, and
Sure.
and I never use people's names unless I'm talking favorably about them. But I do have friends of mine going, "Were you talking about me this morning?"
Right.
And sometimes I am, sometimes I'm not, but I never divulge that information. I don't kiss and tell. And so Xavier's getting off the bus yesterday, and his bus helper Shauna comes out. She goes, "He wrote me a really nice letter about how much he loved his bus driver today." Well, I didn't realize it was International Bus Driver Appreciation Day yesterday. And so I'm thinking she must have heard the show.
Oh,
and she kind of looked at me and kind of smirked. And I was kind of like, well, that's great. That's super. And then, of course, the bus driver didn't say a word to me because she normally doesn't. And I was like, that's wonderful. And she goes, it was really, really sweet. And I was like, that's awesome. And he had this big smile on his face. And I said, well, why'd you write those letters to your bus driver? He goes, well, today's bus driver day. And I said, oh. So it was one of those moments where I got really hot really fast. I went, okay, what I say means something and merits some weight to it.
But then it really doesn't.
But in this particular case, well, the podcast came out today, so we'll see. We'll see if she's driving down the road at 5:15 tomorrow morning. You missed it.
I just want to see your ass running down.
So, yeah. Oh, dude. Watching me run down a street at 6:30 in the morning is like watching a stork.
I know.
It's
big clumpy shoes.
Yeah, I get my nose is hanging out, and oh man, it's just.
I don't do that anymore.
And bones are cracking.
Right.
It's like watching a skeleton run down the street. It's pathetic. By the way, we're looking for a gym or some type of instructional aerobics kind of thing. If you want to come in and spend some money with us, we'll do something live on the air with you, and I'll get
yourself in shape.
Yeah, I got so many things wrong with me right now, dude.
Hey, nobody wants to care. Nobody cares. Unless it's your genitals, nobody
Unless
cares.
it's someone that wants to put some money on Tony Kurre Radio.
Oh, yeah. No,
call me at 205-542-1848.
Yes, because there's all kinds of things you can fix on him.
Yeah,
I mean, almost any product or service that you have, you could use.
Yeah, I don't care. On my sales packages, my phone number's on there. And
they just call right now?
Yeah, well, and people are like, dude, and it's like, we used to protect our phone number like to the death. It was like a Social Security number. Yeah. It's 205. My number's 205-542-1848. Right. I don't care. Call me if you want to do business. I'm here for you. 542-1848. Call me. It's my personal line. I don't care. You can call me right now.